Okay, this is us. We put this on every week. I'm Erica Gifford, Amy Graham, Sean Captain, who just rolled in from New York and is on his way to Jazz Fest. Davey Davenport with IBM, the techie looking guy with that. Sean Como and Matt Palmer, who's bringing great energy. And we have to give a shout out to Annie. Annie? Here, there you are. There you are. She shows up every week, and she's like our best and greatest volunteer in some ways. All right, without further ado, Johnny Shields, why don't you take the stage?
Thank you. And I'm not going to stand on the stage because I'm already ridiculously tall.
Well, we want you in the screen.
You have to.
Can I have to?
Get close. Well, get close.
I'll be in the way of the screen if I do that.
It's fine. You're in the screen to the left.
We'll give you a chair.
We can see you. You're still in the screen.
Everybody can see me?
Yes.
Right, if I stand right here, then that should be perfect. All right. So hey everybody, as I said, I'm Johnny Shields. I'm the producer of Beer City Comic Con. I'm excited to tell you about the event, but I really wanted to kind of give you some background about me and kind of my story and what led me to create this event. So to start off, can we switch slides? Oh no. We had some technical difficulties earlier. Still figuring it out.
It went to sleep. Your computer.
Should wake up. Yeah.
Tell a story, John.
Tell a story, and did you guys send it to my email?
No, we didn't. I mean, I can go on without the.
Okay, Davey Davenport is going to get up and kind of do some.
There we go.
Interpretive dance.
Comedy. Okay, we're going to do karaoke. So just kind of begin telling about your story.
Okay, I'll just jump into it, and we just won't have the addition of the slides, and that's fine.
Yeah,
So, what?
and you can stand up.
That's true.
Well,
We don't even need it anymore.
no.
All right, so what I was going to say, that was a fun slide for it, is, so I am dyslexic, and I grew up with undiagnosed dyslexia. Actually, was diagnosed 3 years ago when my 13-year-old son was diagnosed, which is, and I'm 41 now, so that's a long time to not know what the hell is going on with you. And so growing up with undiagnosed dyslexia, which if you don't know, means that your brain has a hard time translating kind of the written word. And so coming up with, it just wasn't on people's radar back then. And so nobody knew what was wrong and how to help or anything. So basically in school, everybody just assumed, well, Johnny's just dumb and lazy. Which is a bummer. There we go. Yeah, okay, so there's dyslexia, a nice little description of that. And so really that's the way it was for me. It was really, really hard. I pretty much gave up on school. It's just like, I'm not going to be able to do this. And by association, learning just sucked. And I didn't want to have anything to do with it. Until one day, someone put a comic book in my hand. And it was one of those random events. I was going over to a friend's house, and we had to go to the grocery store with his dad, and his dad saw me looking at some comic books. He's like, hey, pick one out, I'll buy one for you. And one of those small events that changes your entire life, right? Because for a dyslexic or someone with a learning difference, the comic book medium is so accessible because, the majority of the story is told through pictures. And also, characters and stuff, and so it became a story that I could really dive into. And then through that process, get to work on the reading, because there are words, obviously, and I can actually remember back in the day, like, my first few comic books, I can go and pick them up, I still kept them all, so I can go pick them up, and I remember, like, I'll look at them and be like, oh, I actually never read this. Like, I just looked at the pictures. But then later on, I kept getting more involved in the story and the characters to where I was like, all right, I've got to read all these words. And I can even remember sometimes, like, flipping the page, and then some pages have a lot more text than others. And flip the page, shit. All right, here we go. But the cool thing is that over several years of doing that, I became a fluid reader. And then not only that, this is something that I think people don't realize about comic books, is that I was exposed to a lot of bigger ideas and concepts. Because they'll regularly involve psychology, psychiatric issues, philosophy, ethical dilemmas, and things like that, physics, quantum physics. And as anybody who is a sci-fi fan here knows, like, all good sci-fi has a basis in science fact, right? And then you extrapolate the fiction out of that. And the same thing goes for comic books. And so I was exposed to all these bigger ideas and just got my noodle kind of cooking on a bunch of bigger concepts. And so, fast forward to today, one of the things I'm trying to do with this event is kind of facilitate that experience for other people, is to bring them in with a fun, colorful event, but then expose them to kind of some of these bigger ideas, highlight the bigger ideas. And the way we're going to do that is by bringing in professionals from outside the comic book industry to sit on panels with our comic book creators to kind of do the deep dives into that science, psychology, philosophy, physics, what have you, and really, try to inspire people to see that, to take that wonder in an imaginary world and bring it into the real world. And hopefully inspire them to say, like, man, I didn't know how far this psychology rabbit hole could go. Like, I'm gonna go grab a book. Maybe I'm gonna grab a class at UNCA or AB Tech or something. Okay. Well, that's fine. We'll get to that in a second. But another, I just wanted to kind of briefly describe another aspect of the con that we're gonna be doing, which involves getting people out into their communities. And so one of the things is we're going to be partnering with a lot of different local businesses, venues, breweries, restaurants, what have you, to do smaller pop-up events, all kind of in relation leading up to and during the con. Part of the reason for that is just we're going to be bringing people in from out of town, and we want to encourage them to then spread out around town and spend their money at our local businesses and help our community. Okay, so I wanted to give you kind of a brief sampling of some of our guest speakers that we'll have, just to give you an idea of kind of the breadth that we'll be doing. So Rich Divany, he is a former member of SEAL Team 6. He's written an amazing book called The Attributes, which is about like psychological attributes that you need to create a good team, both in a corporate, sports, or highest level of, military stuff. Anyways, amazing book, I highly recommend it. Andrew Iden is a former staffer with the late Congressman John Lewis. He also co-wrote the Congressman's autobiography, March, which was done in a graphic novel format, which is phenomenal. Stephanie Williams is a comic book creator out of Charlotte. She's kind of well known right now for giving voice to female characters and bringing them into the spotlight, and particularly characters of color. So really leading that charge right now, which is very needed and awesome. Bruce Waller, who I think most people here know, he's one of our locals, one of the minds and hearts behind Black Wall Street, Grind Coffee, Grind Fest. Could go on and on, he's amazing. Donald Robertson here is a Scottish-born psychologist. He's also a Stoic philosopher. He actually wrote a graphic novel about the life and philosophy of Marcus Aurelius. It's awesome. Brennan Reynolds is a professor here at UNCA in evolutionary biology. He teaches a class on the biology of Star Wars, so obviously a great fit. And then Mark Russell is actually my favorite current comic writer, and he's just well known for incorporating a lot of religious concepts, philosophical concepts, existential dilemmas, things like that into his books. I just love him, and he's agreed to come, so I'm super excited about it. All right, next one. And so this is another really important part to us. Open Doors Asheville is our nonprofit partner and benefactor for the event. We really share their mission of wanting to make education more accessible and equitable to everybody, regardless of race, learning difference, whatever it may be. I mean, actually, they really helped with my son, who also has dyslexia, finding resources here in Asheville and stuff. So I'm very indebted to them personally, but I also very much believe in their mission. Okay. And then kind of, finally, this is just kind of a general outliner for the actual weekend, just to give you an idea of everything that we're doing. So Beer City ConX is going to happen on Friday, and that's actually our like comic book version of TEDx. So it's just short form lecture series by our guests to get an opportunity to just get up there and kind of give their mission, their vision, their research, whatever, which then sets the stage for on Saturday will be our first day of the con, which has, you know, lots of vendors, panel discussions, which will be, sorry, too close, which will be a combination of our, you know, kind of big brain speakers with our comic book speakers. And then of course, beer and costumes and all sorts of fun stuff. And then Sunday, so just gives you a small example of some of the partnerships we're doing. So we're partnering, kicking the day off by partnering with Asheville Drag Brunch to do a comic sci-fi version of the brunch, which I'm super excited about. And then the day two of the con, just same Saturday, vendors, panels, all the fun stuff. And then finally, as was mentioned, we're partnering with the Asheville Symphony to do a John Williams Star Wars concert at Thomas Wolfe Auditorium. So it actually starts like doors open for that the moment doors close at the con to get everybody over to there. And then I have one final one. So this is another example of some of the things we got going on. It's tomorrow, and we're partnering with the Mule Devil's Foot Beverage Company's thing to do a May the 4th Be With You celebration. It's also our Chamber of Commerce ribbon cutting ceremony and a chamber after hours. So it'll be a great networking event. And in this event, I don't think it says it on this thing, but it also is a benefit for Pisgah Legal, which obviously does great work in this community. And so we're happy to be supporting them. So this is just an example of kind of some of the things we're starting already, and we're going to keep doing all the way up until the con, working with different local businesses, throwing fun events. I always try to make it a benefit for a nonprofit that's doing good work here as well. And that's it.
All right. All right, and now time for questions. If you have questions, please raise your hand. Rules of the 1 Million Cups, raise your hands, talk into the mic, not like I'm doing right now, because I don't know where it is.
Talking to the mic, raise your
Because
hand.
that is how it's picked up on the recording. No questions? You guys are all...
questions, okay, here we go.
I want to make sure that you connect the two people that we have here. We have a sci-fi writer who has 2 books out that are teen-oriented right now. It's really great.
Really? In the room?
No, in that work in the
Okay.
in this area, and then also because we also have the extra working.
Yeah, of course.
Also the extra working.
There we go.
And then also, do you know Laura Banks? She is
I don't
the
think so.
muse of Wrath of Khan, the face that's on a lot of the advertising. Like she goes
Wow.
to Khan just to sign that picture.
No.
She also is an author and has some amazing books that are follow-up on her experiences. from-
Okay. Any other kind of information?
I do, so we'll connect.
Yeah, she works out of cash now.
Yeah.
See?
See, we're connected.
See how valuable this is, everybody? It's awesome.
Sorry, not to get too personal, but, or business personal. How did you get the Civic Center and, how much was it? Was there a discount? And are you selling tickets? How are you paying for this? How are you gonna make money?
Yeah. Great, all great questions. So, yeah, the Civic Center, I mean, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I'm not sure if they would like me to be giving it out public knowledge because it's not listed on their website. So I think it might be something, but like, you call them and sign a contract, and then you pay them. But as far as yeah. No, so we have an association with them. So it is a for-profit company. This is, and for the most part, the upfront cash is coming from me and loans from the bank. But part of the model obviously is using sponsorship dollars to help pay for some of the costs of the event. And then yes, it's a ticketed event, so and all the other separate events are ticketed as well. Oh, well, not this one actually. Sorry, I was meant the other ones. But yeah, so selling tickets, selling sponsorships, and that's how the event makes money. And then Open Doors actually will be receiving a percentage of the proceeds from the event. Yeah, but for the most part, self-funded at this point.
So you're partnering with a nonprofit to get the 75% discount?
No.
Okay. So how many people do you need to have attend to break even?
To break even, it's actually not, reasonably for a size of event this is, it's about 2,500, which we're expecting about 4,000 people a day for this event. That's based off other significantly smaller Comic-Con-like events that nobody else in this, outside of like Charlotte, but anyone that's within an hour radius of here, they receive about 3,500 to 4,000 people a day at those events, and they don't have guests, they don't have they don't have panels, it's really just a vendor floor that people are paying to go and dress up and have a great time, which is awesome. I go to all of them, they're a lot of fun, so nothing wrong with that. But we're trying to do a much bigger thing, and really just part of our idea too is to have this represent Asheville, so we're not going to do a normal Comic-Con, we're going to do a really weird one that incorporates all these different concepts into it. And as far as I know, and I've done the research, no one's ever done something like this as a Comic-Con before. So that's part of the idea of to set ourselves apart from any other Comic-Con in the country right now.
So, this may be a really silly question, so forgive me.
Love silly
I've been in
questions.
Asheville
I'm a
for-
silly guy,
Yeah,
so,
no, we're silly on me, I suppose. I've been in Asheville for almost 5 years now. Beer City, is that what we're called?
That's a great question.
Or is there going to be beer there?
It's actually, yes, we are called Beer City, but two, it is a hotly debated title. There's a lot of different cities vying for this. Now, and that's based on, but here's the thing, we have a valid call to it, is that basically we're always within the top 3 cities in the United States for most breweries per capita. And so, but it fluctuates year to year as breweries close and breweries open and everything like that. So we're always in there. And so it's not really a title that anybody gets to hold by themselves. But it is like obviously we do have a claim to it. And also it's fun branding. It is a big part of our community and our culture here in Asheville. And again, we want this to be representative of Asheville. And it's on brand for the city, which makes the city like us. We've got a grant from Explore Asheville and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, because you're pitching what we are to the larger community. So, and really, I'm glad you mentioned this too, because part of the idea of the Beer City thing too is because there is an element of there's Motor City Comic-Con in Detroit, right? It's just part of the theme of the city, and we're playing on that. But also, one of the ideas that yes, we have these bigger brain things going on, this kind of educational component, but I think the Beer City title helps give it a but we're not taking ourselves too seriously. We're going to be having a couple beers and enjoying ourselves, and so it's going to be a laid back, fun event, not a browbeating, kind of whatever, So that was all part of the idea of the name. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just a question for noobs like me. Comic-Con culture. I've seen people dressed up before in Asheville, but you're saying this is the first.
No, that's it.
Please explain.
Yeah. That's a great event. So, that's a great point. You must think we have had a Comic-Con here. It closed at Harrah's. I think it was the Comic Expo, I believe, or something like that. But it closed several years ago. But I love the point because, and I wanted to hit on this, but I didn't get around to it. So the culture of a Comic-Con is a very, very open, accepting place. You don't yuck other people's yum, you're kind of oh, you want to be a trans version of Wolverine? That's awesome. You look amazing, and And I'm telling you, that's the culture, and it's beautiful, and it's a really cool thing to be a part of. And it's like, yeah, and that fits Asheville like a hand in a glove. Like, it's perfect. And so that was one of the things of like really wanting to use that and bring in some of these bigger concepts. And because, you know, the long-term goal of the event really is to, you know, eventually get to where we're practicing some civil discourse, like having some bigger conversations, but using this culture of like, hey, I can be here and I can accept what you're interested in or your opinions and not treat you like you're the enemy just because you disagree with me. And that is, you know, that's in the background, you know, of kind of the missions of the event. So I'm glad you actually brought it up.
Hey, I think this is great. I really like the fact that you're kind of centered around education and social impact. And I was wondering if you have thought about incorporating the YMI, having maybe a group, you know, a session over there for folks. I don't know if the building would be ready, but they have the Noir Collective.
Right.
I think that the disparity gap in the city is probably the most relevant issue. And this is, I think, could be a great thing for, you know, Black Asheville. And that institution is obviously the centerpiece.
Totally.
And so I'm actually going to meet with some folks there, involved there later today. I can mention it.
If you don't mind bringing my card with you, I would absolutely love that. I mean, like it is, you know, and as you saw, like Bruce Waller is on our thing, and he was very excited. Actually, it was funny because I just talked to Bruce before he presented here. Do you remember this? It was a big moment for me because I think it was the first time I was here, and Bruce was presenting, and I'd just been emailing with him about wanting to come to the con. And after he had presented, someone asked him like, "What are you really into, like when you're outside of business or something like that?" And he's like, "Well, I'm actually really into anime, and I'm really excited about speaking at this event. You know, it's happening." And I was in the crowd. I was like, "In September." And he's like, "Yeah, it's in September." It's whatever. I was like, and then finally I was like, "Yeah, I'm Johnny." He's like, "Oh yeah." I'm like, so it was really funny. But absolutely, I mean that is something like that we're really, and that's actually, you know, again, I didn't do my formal ask, but that is part of the idea, part of the ask here is to just to help, you know, so have more people that understand the concept of what we're going for, and then can say like, hey, like let's pull this organization in, they could benefit from this exposure, or you know, this is a good voice that needs to be heard. Like, let's do that. I mean, like, so even with the guests that I have, you know, some of them have spoken at other things, you know, some of the comic book people and stuff, and one of the things I tell them is like, hey, what's something that you want to talk about? Not the normal thing that you talk about. Like, for instance, I had this conversation with Stephanie Williams, who's a woman of color, writes for people, and I was like, and like, if you want to give a talk on like diversity and inclusion in comic books and how that spreads out into the greater community and everything, awesome, I love it, let's do it. If there's some other thing that's close to your heart and that's really important to you that you haven't found the right venue to get to talk about yet, this is the one. And let's do it. You know, and I'd say that to all of our guests, like, I'm not pigeonholing you into the things that you haven't talked about before. This is a place that we can talk about other ideas and getting things out there. So
maybe to that point, do you have like a committee, like, you know, if I wanted to get involved in helping down the stretch here, like, do you have committees that people in the room can get involved with?
We don't have a formalized committee. I do have a handful of like consultants in different in different areas that are essentially playing that role, though not formalized in that sense, but not to say you know. And again, you know, like everybody knows, this is a first year business, so there's a lot of you're just building it as you go. And when opportunities present themselves, like, okay, well let's figure that out. Let's build it. So yeah, great points. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My 8-year-old son has dyslexia, and so I'm wondering if you have any recommendations as far as resources and we homeschool.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, so you homeschool. God bless you. That's a lot of work with a dyslexic man, like for real. Like I get impatient with my son who has dyslexia, and I have dyslexia. You know, I was like, come on, man, you're not even trying. But it's like, no, I remember I was trying when I was his age too. It gets really frustrating. one thing is, like, you can talk to Open Doors, and they actually have, like, kind of a program for, that's actually, I mean, essentially, it's a paid, like, you know, you can pay them to advise you and stuff, and say, like, and they really did, like, and we, like, worked through several different things. It's actually Jen Ramming, who's the executive director, and she came to our house several times, sat down with us. Okay, let's talk about what we think would be a good fit, what your budget is, what your, you know, all those kind of things. So that's a really good one. And then, I mean, I'm assuming you probably, but like the Dyslexic Advantage is a very good book that just kind of gives you a good, and because that's a big part. This is, you're going to get me on the soapbox here, but like, you know, obviously a big part of this is changing the way we look at these things, you know, as like dyslexia being an, you know, an advantage. It's a special way that your brain can work. You have, you know, it's funny. Like when I talked to my son when he got diagnosed, like, and luckily, you know, obviously we're a superhero family. So so when we sat down to talk, my wife and I sat down to talk to him about it. You know, the way I explained it to him is like, what you have to realize is that dyslexia is a superpower. Like, it's a way that your brain can work that other people's brains can't work. Now, as you know about superheroes, they all have a weakness. So Superman, his weakness is kryptonite. There's a rock that will kill him if he's nearby. That's the stupidest weakness ever, but he has to deal with it. He has to work around it. He has to find ways to accept that when kryptonite comes in the room, I gotta do something about it. And reading is your kryptonite. Reading is going to be your thing that's really hard for you to deal with. It's going to be your weakness. But you can learn ways to work through that so that then you can use your superpower to its greatest ability. Yeah, we're actually having a panel around neurodiversity as a superpower with Shanine Daniels, who is part of Create, which is a psychological testing center here in downtown Asheville. So we're going to be hitting on that point very big, which is also a good resource if you haven't done the actual like psychological testing, because then it can really narrow down exactly what's going on. Because there's also like ADHD is also a lot of times comorbid with dyslexia, so is anxiety. I've got the whole package over here. And those often you have to play off them in the right way to work best to your abilities. So yeah, absolutely.
Hi, thank you for presenting. Two questions. One, will there be Star Trek content? Just a big fan of Star Trek. Second, more difficult. I'm pretty sure there was like AshevilleCon last year, and I think it's going to happen again this year.
Yes.
What's sort of the relation between the two?
Yeah, so one, Star Trek, yes. We don't have any Star Trek guests lined up yet, but I am
We
looking
heard
into
Ryan
it.
Connolly over here.
Yeah, right, exactly, there you go. And then, yes, so Asheville Comic Con is a thing that does exist. It's kind of like, and actually it's taking place the Saturday before ours. And I've been in communication with the organizer of that event just to say like, hey, let's work together. You know, let's make it work. And like I said, it's a great event. It's just it's a different model of what they're going for. Yeah, exactly. Which again, awesome, great. And if we can help each other out, then we're going to do it. And he was very willing, so we're going to keep having that conversation. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, what is the sort of balance of like adults and kids at these kinds of things? And then is the beer aspect at all, like, does that cause any tension about having kids around or anything?
Great question. So it's definitely a healthy mix. I mean, it's literally all ages. I mean, like from 89-year-olds all the way down to 2-year-olds. I mean, it's and really. I mean, well, and obviously, like, the majority ends up being adults, because there's plenty of adults that just go for their own sake, and then there's parents with kids, right? So just do the math, it's gonna be more adults. But, I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Like the beer aspect.
Oh, yeah, no, that's funny, because my 13-year-old always, like, from the get-go, so I was like, okay, but Dad, you've got to make sure that you get it across that it's okay for kids and families, because the beer might. I was like, I know, yes, you're right. I do need to do that, and I'm going to. And so yes, and the thing is, like, so it's not like a tasting festival, you know, and it's not a place that's the idea is for everybody to be getting as wasted as possible or anything like that. You know, again, part of the name is just because it's a fun name, it ties into the city and everything like that. Now, we are going to be highlighting our local breweries, and we'll, like, breweries that come on as sponsors will be served at the event, but it's just you buy a beer just like you would anything else. And just one point, it's like, but, you know, and I told my son this, was like, dude, this is Asheville. We go to Highland Brewing every week, so because mom plays volleyball, and, you know, like, and it's nothing to families, you know, so family-friendly places to drink is a very normal part of our culture here in Asheville. But he's right, and there are, like, some things that we're doing, like, you know, even the Star Wars event and some of these other things that were, you know, which we purposely did with the Mule, because it's a soda company, though they do have a bar. So kind of, but the same kind of thing of identifying that, like, you know, you don't have to drink to come to this thing. Like, and we are going to be working with other organizations. I was just talking to someone, it's here. That's here. Anyways, about coffee and other things to just make sure there's plenty of other non-alcoholic choices. But we are going to be doing things to make sure that we're hitting that kid thing and letting people know, like, this is a family-friendly event. Come out and have a great time. So.
A practical question here. I went to your website and saw that the tickets were both available through Ticketmaster and the box office.
No.
For the box office purchases, do you avoid the rip-off fees from Ticketmaster?
No, like, and it's, yeah, you're hitting a point. I'll go off on this. I'm not going to. But we're contractually, we have to through Harris to use Ticketmaster. And just to let you know too, their ticketing page is terrible. And we're in the process of building out our own ticketing page on our website that'll have better definitions and ticket and links and everything like that, because we're going to lean on theirs, but it's terrible and confusing and everything. So again, all those things you have to deal with first year is like, oh, well, we didn't foresee that happening, so now we got to build this whole page on our website. So it happens.
Hey, I was just curious if you have another quote-unquote day job, or like how you find balance in running a massive, I assume this is a shit ton of work, and what your life looks like right now.
So this is my full-time job right now. I kind of decided to do this, and like, hello? Yeah, okay. And it was like, this is kind of the first event, so I just started my own event production company, which is just called Johnny Shields Productions. Yes, I am a little narcissistic, but also it's mainly just because people have always said my whole life, oh, it sounds like a comic book name. I'm like, well, I'm throwing Comic-Con, so let's just play with that. Yeah, so it is my full-time job, and yet, because there's no effing way I can do anything else than this right now. Like, it's such a big undertaking. And yeah, I mean, as all of you know, like, balancing that life is hard. I do try to have a set turn-off time. That's like, all right, it's family time now, you know, and I move into, and usually, I mean, luckily there's things that make me do that. I have to go pick the kids from school or take them to activities and stuff. It's like, all right, well, I can't be on my phone or my computer anymore, so that's it, I'm done. But it's hard, as all of you know, being, you know, business runners and stuff, and it is something that's a constant daily struggle, you know, of like, it's time to turn off, or like, I'm so stressed out, I'm taking it out on my kids and stuff like that. So yeah, especially, but again, all of you know, like, first year is the hardest, and so I have a mantra in my head, like, next year's not gonna be like this. Just, you gotta get through this, be cool, man, get through the first year, and we'll just be rolling after that. So, yeah.
I have a somewhat related question, wondering about a business model. Like, this is an annual event, this is your full-time job. You said, like, how do you keep that going as a business when you sort of just have like one big spike in terms of your revenue, and then assume the rest of the year is pretty flat? Like, are you thinking about doing other events, like expanding that production company?
Right. Yes, that's a great question. And yes, I mean, part of that is I mean, and my background is in event production. I have 10 years of event production experience out of Nashville, moved here about 5 years ago. And so part of it is just, that's the model, and you have to plan for it, you know, so there's like double all the money. You know, make a budget that's gonna last until the next year we get a big spike. But at the same time, yes, absolutely, doing other events, like part of the idea is, this is the launching pad for my, event production company. I have a few other ideas kicking around my head once I get this one kind of up and rolling. And then also, like, part of the idea for my model will be like, once I'm well known and other companies come and say, hey, we want to do an anniversary party, we want to do whatever, and like, great, I got you, and that's going to be part of the model too, because that's a much better way to people pay you to throw their event instead of risking all your money on everything. So, like, but doing a little bit of both, it keeps it fun. I don't know. That it? Oh.
Hey Johnny, Katie Caston has been raving about you for a while. My name is Sean O'Connell. I got a lot of background producing events, so I know the stress.
Yeah.
A couple things. I love the things like bringing Shanita and neurodiversity. If I can help in that world, I think that one of the things about the neurodiverse community is often while a comic book or a cartoon or a science fiction show often is that companion and that the way to relate to the world. Going to big events, and this is as a parent of a neurodiverse son, and a guy who's produced events that are 50,000 people and under, it's really stressful for a lot of the neurodiverse community. But I think you're on to something, and there are small groups that get together in kind of a way that they feel safe, and I think there may be an opportunity to kind of tack onto that, and really, and it's a major community, so at the end of the day, it's beyond doing something great, it's, there's revenue there.
Yeah.
So I just like to offer, my help on that. And listen, I saw this and I rolled my eyes at the name, to be honest with you, because I'm like, oh my God. And to Sean's point, the only thing to do with families in Asheville, North Carolina, is take your kid to a brewery. And so it's like, oh, let's break out of that. But I love the programming. Reminds me a little bit about Hatchfest, the 12 years ago, where we brought in all these unique people. And I think that's super, super smart. And I do think it'll be a marketing challenge to rise above that name to get that vision you have, which I think is going to connect with people in a really big way. Even people who aren't necessarily comic book folks. And then finally, my question is, how do you use that venue? Most of these type of events feel kind of like a flea market trade show, right? A booth after booth after booth. From a production standpoint, and you've got 10 years in production, how do you separate this event so there's an aesthetic and there's a style and a level of production? That's super hard. It's a super big room.
Yeah.
And you're trying to tackle a lot of stuff.
And not the prettiest room either.
No, not the prettiest room. Are you doing the panels in the main room, or is it?
Right. Yeah. All great points, and I really appreciate everything. And yes, Katie's awesome. And so we're going to try to attack this. One, about make a few different points, but I'm going to need you to remind me of the different things. So one on the neurodiversity point and big events being overwhelming, absolutely, and I totally agree. One of the ways that we're trying to work with that is the idea of the satellite events happening even during the con, and like all tickets are come and go. You can leave and come back and as many times as you want. And Katie and I actually just sat in a meeting yesterday with Well Played Cafe, and to have that as as one of the potential, like this is a much more like and be having D&D games or whatever, where you can kind of like you can do the thing when you start feeling overwhelmed, like all right, let's go over there and just like sit down in a quiet place and play a game for a little while, and then we can go back when we're ready. And not that would be the only option, but that idea of like having other venues to be able to just leave within an easy walking distance, get that quiet space for a little while and then go back. Or not go back, maybe just hang out there a little bit, I don't know. And then yeah, we're gonna be yelling. Okay. As far as aesthetics and everything, like I do think yes, it's a hard one. We are trying to do it. Part of that is actually One is just like, using more pipe and drape, and doing just little things like that. Like, it's a little thing, but it kind of does make a big difference in just general view. And then one of the things too is that we're being very exclusive with our vendors, like hand picking them. And so, because one of the things we're trying to do is one is if you go to a normal Comic-Con, it's like nothing but comic books and action figures. I love both of those things, but one of the things we're trying to do is again have this more representative of a wider audience. And so we're incorporating more of our local vendors, local artists, things like that. But then part of it too is like part of our judgment and the ability to get into the con is send us pictures of where you've set up before, and so that they're good looking, presentations of their work, not just like a crap ton of bins of action figures sitting on the floor. Just like, well, no, it looks like a flea market or something like that. That's not what we're going for. So I mean that's the way we're and to that degree, I also highly recommend it to Harris and put him in touch with a painter that I used to work for. Like, we could do a paint job with this place and look a lot better. I don't know if they're gonna go for it or not. Maybe it's a degree, like, yes, that'd be awesome, but no, we're not gonna do that. So I'm doing what I can to make it as appealing visually as we can. So.
Did you look at other venues? Was that always the venue you wanted to do?
Right. Yeah. Well, so it's the biggest venue in downtown Nashville, and so really I didn't have another option because the important thing for me is that it's walkable to other local businesses. So some people do things out at the Ag. There's a Comic-Con actually out at the Ag Center. But my thing is like, you got all dressed up, and then you go to that, and then you just go home. There's nowhere to go, and so like my thought is like, no, like go out, show your shit off, and because I just love, and when I first was coming up with the idea, I just love the idea of people coming in for leaf season, and they're sitting at a bar and they see like 3 Batmans walk by, and everyone's like, what the hell is going on, and eventually I hope that that becomes a thing, that there's Beer City Comic-Con tourists who don't even buy a ticket to the con. There's you just gotta be in Asheville with this going on. Just crazy people walking around and crazy shit all over the place. It's just because I think it'd be fun,
Awesome. I want to say, what a great presentation. Let's put it All right, a huge thanks to our sponsors, Charlie and Troy Ball, who allow us to use the space every week. Scored, Mike Trufa back there, the Hatch Foundation. We've got Chris Bueller in the back. Annie Lewis, Hatchworks, Cirilla T, Venture Asheville, WNC Business. We got Jen right there. So Dr. Her for all your needs, and also they have the most comprehensive calendar of everything that's going on in Western North Carolina every single week. Mountain Bisbergs, Big C, Dynamite Coffee Roasting Company is what you're drinking this morning. Viking Mergers and Acquisitions, and Coffee Curious Workshops, who makes that delicious coffee every Wednesday. If you've gotten a mug from our little mug library, be sure to return it so we have it for next week. Thank you. And coming up this week, next week is Single Double Pickleball. Our friend Jen, who has got a great pickleball company where she makes paddles and that sort of thing, she's going to be speaking on that. And on Thursday, following that event, we're going to be playing pickleball at Asheville Sports Club, just down the street, so you get to try out the paddles. Today, Rich is playing pickleball. Pickleball, we're just saying pickleball over and over and over. But that's happening at 4. And on Friday, we are celebrating Cinco de Mayo here from 4 to 7. We are having a tripped out taco bar. Margaritas are being provided by Pirani, and they're also bringing a bunch of their cups. If you don't know Pirani, these are their cups. They're amazing. They have all of these cups that they've laser etched on to test. So they're going to be crazy cups that everyone goes home with. If you are coming, RSVP, we want to have enough tacos. And that's on our website. Next. Okay, the Werther has the Comedy Zone this Friday and Saturday. And I think they have early and late shows, which are really fun. So it's fun to like kind of head there a little later on after you've had dinner. We've gone to a couple recently, and I don't think I've ever laughed that hard. In all honesty, the comedians were amazing, and the audience was really engaged. And next Wednesday, oh, John Jones, raise your hand. Yeah, or Tuesday. And Eli, yeah. Do you guys want to talk about your TED Talk? Or your TED Talk?
It's going to be awesome. The water's going to be set really hot for the future TED Talks.
TED Talk.
I wouldn't miss it if I were you.
Yeah. Basically, the idea is doing fireside chats with technology professionals in the area. So we're going to have John Jones, he's the CEO of Amproware. And so many times we talk about the technology world, we don't really grasp why people make the decisions that they do. We get with things like remote work, with things like hiring and touring folks, with this tech stacks. You know what a tech stack is, like why do you choose the tech stack that you do? We're going to be talking about that. So that's going to be on Tuesday if you're interested.
And so much more.
And it's going to be happening right here in the space.
And cookies, lots, even more cookies.
And cookies. And beer?
No beer.
No beer, just cookies.
Oh yeah, that's actually one of the things with it, like the whole beer city. I actually want to be able to bring like high schoolers and younger people in, and so that is there won't be alcohol, just so everyone's comfortable.
That's awesome. All right. Thank you so much for coming. If you'd like to present, use your camera to click the QR code and apply online. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you next week for pickleball.